Where are we flying to today, Lindsay? I was just working that out, so I was messing around with my Sky Demon. Let's put that on a sec. I was messing around with my Sky Demon there, and thinking, let's maybe start off down the southwest part of England. Because last time we did this, we kind of flew all along the south coast, didn't we? And Plymouth was quite cool. So I thought, why don't we start off down in Newquay? And then maybe we'll fly to Plymouth. And then from Plymouth we'll bounce up towards Exeter Airfield. We'll overfly Exeter, have a look. More or less overfly Dunkswell, and then we'll head up towards Bristol here. And then maybe we'll land at Bristol. And then figure out where we're going to go next. But after Bristol, I'm not sure if we want to go Wales, like go the west coast of Wales, and then up the coast towards Anglesey. Maybe we could go around Wales and come up towards Liverpool. Or we can cut inland. I don't know. But we'll figure that out later, I think. So that's I just literally punched that in like 5 minutes ago. I was thinking, let's do that. Why not? You live in Exeter. Do the Mach loop in a Cessna, Matty. It's not the same doing the Mach loop in a Cessna, is it? You want to do it in a Tornado, really, for the real experience. Fly to the Isle of Man. Well, we're nowhere near the Isle of Man yet. I mean, would you want to wait till you get up to Liverpool? You could fly to the Isle of Man from Liverpool, maybe.
Welcome to the Nut House.
But the problem with flying to the Isle of Man, the problem with it is you're flying over the Irish Sea, which is inherently boring. Like, flying over the sea is just boring. You're from Liverpool, so you can fly there. Well, thank you for the permission.
To the Nut House.
Dark Variable, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for the bits, Dark Variable. Thank you for 500 bits. Mills, 42. Angel Dinner, 34 months. And 2 new subs. The Demo Duo and High Off Lemons. Okay. Thank you, guys. Welcome to the Nut House. Thanks for the nutty welcome. A lot of the reason I'm flying GA, Lindsay, is because I'm still doing a lot of GA flying in real life. Like I was flying on Wednesday. I haven't told you about Wednesday. Maybe we should get in the air and tell you about that. So basically, I enjoy a lot of GA flying, Lindsay, but I will go back to the jets at some point. But they're not a priority for me right now. Are you going to be watching the British Grand Prix after the stream on Sunday? I'll probably watch the highlights. A lot of things are happening on Sunday. You've got the British Grand Prix, you've got Wimbledon final, I think you've got cricket. There's a lot going on Sunday. But more important than all those things is Sunday night trucking. At the moment, the skiddy, at the moment, I have no plans at the moment. No. You went to Exeter College back in 2003. Yeah, I don't think. I've been to Bristol and I've been to Bath, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain I never went to Exeter itself. Don't know. Yeah, I've seen the Flying Legends at Duxford. There's a Battle of Britain thing in September as well, isn't there? How far is that? $33 nautical to get to Plymouth. Not far. Is this the bottom left of the UK? Well, UK we're flying today, Lindsay? Yeah. Yeah, so if you know that little leg bit that sticks out of the UK, down here where Cornwall is and Devon and that kind of thing, that's where we are. Going to start in Newquay.
Happy anniversary.
Let's have a quick look. Your leg from Bickley down to Exeter is planned at 2,500, which is below the minimum safe altitude of 3,400. Right, so it's basically suggesting You kind of see why at the bottom. Like it's not high enough. Our MSA is not high enough. It's kind of saying that we should be up here somewhere.
Happy anniversary, Nutter.
Well, we can go to 3,000. We can do that.
Happy anniversary, Nutter.
It's because of that antenna on that hill. That's what it is. You're going to do that too. Screening of the Battle of Britain at this place, the RAF Museum in Hendon. Nice.
Welcome back, Nutter.
There's a lot of farmland and scenic routes. If you actually look at the topology of this area, you see all the kind of pink bits. They're hills. So, in terms of farming, it depends what kind of... It tends to be like sheep farming and that kind of thing because they have a lot of very hilly... land. Whereas, say, over where I live, in this area, it's a lot of very flat land. So you get a lot of flat land farming over here. Yeah, it's not mountainous, but it is very hilly, as you'll see when we take off. Like Exmoor's over here, which I think... Isn't Exmoor where they did the whole Hound of the Baskervilles thing? Sherlock Holmes. Or was that Dartmoor? That might have been Dartmoor. But Exmoor and Dartmoor are here. They're very hilly areas. Maybe it's Dartmoor. I can't remember. Carl Coor, 32 months of awesome. Thank you, bro. Captain Jack, 53 months. Welcome back, Jack. Why the hell's pink? You thought grass was green. Anyway, let's have a look at the airfield of Newquay. Let's have a look at the plate for it. So I think we're up here by the tower. So yeah, let's have a quick look. Got a feeling that's where we are. There's like an old disused runway there, you see it? They land helicopters on it, apparently. So yeah, our taxi's going to be basically down that way and then back up the runway this way. And then we'll probably climb out, take a left turn.
Welcome back, Nutter.
And head on down to Plymouth. You don't know the geography of the UK that well? That's fair enough. It's a lot of numbers and letters. You get used to it. Alright, so we'll go flying, use X-plane, and it should show us exactly where we are. Let's get it started. Stereotype, welcome back. We gained battery percent. What? Track IR. Right then. I could use my checklist, couldn't I? But we'll just do it manually. Mr. Libido, how you doing? Can I explain? I'm not sure how we explain, to be honest with you. Right, parking brake is set. See if the mixture lever works. Yeah, look at that. Mixture lever works. There's no car beat on this thing. That's not that one. Are we using the left or right? Left. There we go. I'm still getting used to this setup. Right, let's put the beacon light on. And fuel pump. Mixture's rich.
The engine seems ideally primed.
Quarter throttle. Parking brakes. Get the feet on the brake anyway. Ugh, there we go. Let me get rid of that for now. We'll just get rid of that for now. I may end up leaving things on, but accidentally you need to tell me. Alrighty. So 1200 on the RPM. So when you start up, the important thing to look for is this dial here, which is the... Let me just do that. The important thing to look for when you start up is this, the oil pressure. Basically, that needs to come up straight away. If that doesn't come up straight away, you immediately turn the engine off, because you'll damage the engine. So you're looking for that, essentially. And then through your checks, you start looking for, like, your alternators working, so you've got charge, your vacuum pumps working, so you can actually use the instrumentation, that kind of thing. So you're looking at these dials. We've got full tanks of fuel, by the look of it. Flow's working fine. They're the kind of things that you do, but they're all on your checklist. And also the avionics should have been switched off before we started. How much better do you think X-Plane is over FSX? You can't really compare X-Plane and FSX, to be honest. They're like, FSX is just so many years old now. Right, we can put... We won't bother putting that back. See what the compass is reading. 516, 165. It's reading about 160. By the look of it. Okay, they're lining up. I think the local pressure was 1019, which is there. Do we have a standby? No. Okay. $7,000. Compare X-Plane with P3D. Dude, it's like literally saying to me, can you please compare iOS with Android? It's like, firstly, it's an ongoing, eternal debate filled with opinion. And secondly, there's so many people have said and written so much about it that we're wasting our time. Just go and read some articles. It's set to QNH 1021. It is moonshine. However, I'm not using live weather, and the reason I'm not using live weather is because when I punched live weather in, the cloud layer is quite low, and I thought, yeah, it's not going to be a very interesting flight if we do live weather currently. So I just changed it slightly and put 1019 on the pressure. Can you compare chicken with beef? Yeah. Dr. Introvertius, can't believe it's been 3 months since I joined the Nut House. Here's to many more. Thank you, sir. So if we look at Nuki for a second. What happens to what go compare advert? So, according to this, Nuki has 390, so you might be right about the pressure. 1 second. Yeah, it's actually, according to our local pressure, that's what we should be on right now. So they're probably running 1021, so you are quite correct. Because the elevation should be about 390. On the next stream, Paul compares apples and oranges. Now, if I remember... A second. Buster G, welcome back. So you're intentionally setting 1021 and 1019, DJ Crush? Yes, because 1021 gives us the correct airfield elevation.
Welcome back, Nutter.
Like if we were setting QFE, it would read 0. If we set QNH, it should read the airfield elevation. But it's not exact. It will be close, but it won't be exact. think Mrs. Squirrel forgot to take something out of my cup of tea. See that? I think she forgot to take the tea bag out. She's never actually done that before. Just on Southend to Brest and back, 3 hours of fun, DJ Crush. Ow, ow, ow. Molten tea. Okay. That's been checked, so let's get some lights on. So we'll go with our taxi lights. Put that back for now. Now I think I mapped this button to my parking brake, which is... Yes, that works nicely. So before we do this, let's just go a very quick control check. I want to make sure everything's working okay. Nice, okay. Looks good. Need a molten tea emote. Well, if it was coffee and it's got a tea bag in it, that's going to be pretty weird, right? Do you know what? I'm going to have to lock the wheels on my... Let me just pause this a second, because I am rolling a little bit. There we go. Every time I press on the rudder pedals, my chair goes backwards. What is it? It's a Cessna 172. You're still hoping for an oof emote. Why do you ask, Askavan? Ooh, cough tea. Yeah. I did not buy a share in the plane, Giddy. No. I decided against it in the end. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm going to join the North Weald Flying Group. They have 3 Cessna 172s and a PA 28161 in the group. So if I join that group, I've got a choice out of 4 planes, which gives me a lot of availability and a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to do that for now rather than lock myself into a share. Is the reason that you'd use a full-length runway, you need such a small amount of it, Ninja Granny? Not really. It always depends on what ATC tell you to do, ultimately. They're the ones that are going to tell you which part of the runway to taxi to. There's no proper reason why. I mean, even if they told you to go all the way down to a certain taxi point, you could actually say... You can actually request, you know, somewhere further up the runway if you wanted to. Does membership get you full access to the planes, Matty? Yes. Can you turn on the other camera? What? You mean that one? So I guess the decision I came to in the end. Giddy, just to follow up on that, is that I felt that it was better to remain flexible at the moment than lock myself into a plane. That I wasn't like... I kind of came to the conclusion I wasn't fully committed to that plane, you know? I wasn't fully kind of excited to fly that plane. And a share might come up one day that I am. And then I'll want to be able to jump in. And the problem with that is, if I lock myself in now, I can't jump to a better plane later. So I did a spreadsheet with all the costings, and basically the group is somewhere in between owning a share of the plane and what I'm currently paying. So it kind of saves me money but keeps the flexibility. Looks nice with 2 cameras. Cool. Right, we are just gonna turn off over here. This is where you'd normally... We'll only do this once, we won't do it later, but we'll just run through some power checks and stuff. So this is what they call the run-up area. This is where you bring the plane to do your power tests, always facing to wind, so you would face... 9 times out of 10 you basically face towards a runway, because that's going to be where the wind is. Right, you set your parking brake. How does the yoke feel? You found the SciTech one was a way too elastic feeling. This thing, this Yoko is really expensive, but it feels really nice. It feels so nice. Like, it's designed to go in expensive cockpits. But that honeycomb has a really nice feel as well. Yeah, so if you're thinking of buying a yoke, my advice would be right now to just hold off until that honeycomb comes out. Because for the money, you'll be very hard pressed to find something better than that for the money. Why towards the wind, Neelanch? Because engine cooling. Basically, when you're sat here idling and you're doing power checks, there's not as much air coming through the air intake as there normally is when you're flying along at 90 knots. So you face it into the wind just to get that extra bit of cooling. That's the reason to do it. So anyway, at this point you would run through your power checks, which, if you want, I can dig out my checklist.
Happy anniversary, Nutter.
Ugh. So this is my... You can see this or not, but pre-taxi check. So you get to like this page here, which says power checks, and essentially you look behind you to make sure it's all clear. Put your parking brake on, set your throttle to 1200, which it's on. So the 1200 RPMs. You check that your T's and P's as they're called, so your temperature and pressure is good. It's all in the green, which is nice. Check again behind, and then you throttle up to 1700, so you bring the power up, which is there on this. Always have your feet on the pedals when you do this, just in case the parking brake doesn't hold. But you're checking that the parking brake does hold. And then on my plane you have a carb heat, but this is a fuel injected plane, so there's no carburetor. And then what you do is you're checking the mags. Oops. You're checking the mags, which are these things here. You should get about 100 RPM drop off each. So you see it drop about 100 there. Put it back to both, and then you check the left mag. Same thing. So as it says here, max drop 125, difference of 50. So you shouldn't lose more than 125 RPMs, and the difference between the left and the right should be at 50 at most. What do the mags do? So the magnetos are basically the thing that provide the spark to the spark plug, and there are 2 of them for redundancy. But you want both working, yeah? If there's only one of them work, you don't fly. Literally, you do not fly. But they're the thing that provide the high tension electric to the spark plug to create the spark for the combustion. So you're checking that they're both working. And again, while you're at this high RPM, you're checking temperatures and pressures again are okay. Final thing that you're checking on here is the suction, which is called the vacuum on this. So when you're at 1700, that should be in the green. The vacuum pump is very important because it powers the gyros and things like the altimeter. The attitude indicator. So you want to make sure that that thing is definitely working. You can't fly if it's not. And then you check that the ammeter's charging. Now there are different kinds of ammeter. Some of them read 0 when they're working. Others show like a positive charge. This is a 0 read, so it's basically saying that it's providing you enough power to match the drain. Yeah. So if it was negative, it means you've got a problem with your alternator. And then you bring the throttle all the way back. And you're checking the RPMs because you want it to be between 500 and 700. And that check is important because when you're coming into land and you back off on the throttle, if this thing is idling really high, you're going to get more power than you really want. So that's a problem. That makes sense? And then back to 1200. And that's your power check complete. So we won't do that again. We'll just do that once, just to show you what it's like. Your brain is too small for this info. The thing is, Lindsay, is I've spent like a long time learning this stuff, so at first it can feel very, very overwhelming. It really can. Did you just scroll the wheel to the throttle when you got the quadrant? What, this? No, I just moved this. So anyway, you've done your power checks, so the next thing you're doing is your pre-takeoff vital actions. So you're checking that the fuel selector's on both, because don't forget there's a left tank on the wing and a right tank on the wing, and you want both selected so it's feeding both in. The trim, what did I map the trim to? Oh, that switch there. So yeah, the trim is here. Now you want that to be there for takeoff. If you're heavy, it depends how much weight you've got in the plane, but sometimes you'll want to do it just slightly forward of center, because otherwise if you've got especially weight in the back, it'll have a tendency to tip that way and you want it nose down a little bit. It does come second nature after a while. So trim set for takeoff, flaps as required. Now the flaps, you should have, like, you would have already checked the flaps earlier to see that the needle is correct and that the flaps are indicating and stuff. Normally on the 172 we do flapless takeoff, especially on a runway this length. We've got more than enough runway. So now we put the mixture to fully rich. We set the throttle friction, which we don't need, but there's a little, it's that little thing there, that's like a friction thing. And you turn that and it stiffens the throttle so it doesn't work loose during flight, because the engine vibration does cause it to move around if you don't kind of lock it in a bit. Then you put the strobes on, which is this. The pitot heat would go on at this point if you're going to use it. The nav lights, don't normally run those except at night, at least not in my flight school anyway. You check your magnetos are definitely on both. Check the master switch is all on, avionics is all on. The primer, which we don't have, is locked. We've set our altimeter to 1021, I believe we set it to. Yeah, 1021. Radio frequencies, we're not punching anything in yet. And then you go... Got some cake? Got some cake? Transponder to altitude, so the squawk and our altitude there. Yankee Ray, thank you for 19 months. Noisy Gamer, thank you for 32. And Bob Monkhouse, is that a new chair? Oh, very good spot, Bob. Very good spot. I've not even mentioned it, and Bob was like, hang on a minute. That's not the same chair. Yes, it is a different chair, Bob. It's actually the same chair. It's the GT Omega Master XL. It's the same chair, but it's all black rather than black and white. You'll see it later, but the old one had a white stripe down the middle. This is all black. Yeah, it's exactly the same chair, but it's the black version of it. And it's a bit more comfortable because this one is not squished. Yeah, so you check the doors are all locked and stuff. Everybody's harness is secure. And your flight controls, we already did a check on that, but you're basically checking everything is good. And that's basically it. You're ready to fly at that point. Eagle-eyed Bob, eh? Right, let's go flying. So, first thing we're going to do is check our initial heading. So, according to the plug, which is this thing, we're going to climb to altitude 3,000 feet. And we're going to go on a magnetic heading of 085. Which is, and we are VFR, so we don't have to be exact, but we're going to bug up 085. So we're going to climb out, start keeping our turn going, left turn, rate 1 turn, keep climbing, heading 085, and then we'll get up to 3,000 and level out. That's the plan. Any questions? Yeah, the fuses and the circuit breakers are all checked very early on, like before startup. Basically, they're all sort of checked to be pushed in and stuff. If any of the circuit breakers pop out at any point, even during flight, you are allowed to push them in back once, but you never put them back in twice. If a circuit breaker popped out, there's a reason why it popped out. Usually something was overloaded. You can put it back in, but if it pops out again, you leave it. Because the danger is, if you do put it back in, you may have some kind of short circuit. You could cause an electrical fire. It could get really messy. How do you move your head? Track aisle. If what pops out? A circuit breaker. So a circuit breaker is kind of like a fuse, Lindsay, but it's designed to be reusable. It's designed to pop out instead of like... With a fuse, it's like a thin strip of wire. And if too much current goes through it, it melts the wire, so the wire breaks, and therefore the circuit breaks. With a circuit breaker, it's not designed not to melt, it's designed to basically pop out and physically disconnect. But it can be pushed back in and reset, if you see what I mean. You just made your first solo flight, you've learned a lot from your stream and YouTube. Did you plan to make more flying or more advanced things in the future? Misty, first of all, congrats, mate. Your first solo flight is something you never forget. So well done. And yes, I'm currently doing my IMC. So I was training on Wednesday. I was training last Wednesday. I've got 470 pages of stuff to study and take an exam on. And yeah, I've been doing instrument flying. So after that, I intend to just make videos. That's the end of my, in quotes, learning. Let's go flying, shall we? But yeah, there'll be more videos, definitely. I fly out of Earl's Cone at the moment, Stu, but I will be flying out of North Weald pretty soon. The guy that deals with memberships at North Weald is currently in Spain on holiday, so he's getting back in a couple of weeks. And then I'll be... I need to check out on their Cessnas, which really won't take very long, and then join the group, and then I can hire their aircraft. So I'll be flying more out of North Weald. North Weald's quite interesting because it actually sits within the southern boundary airspace of Stansted, so it's a bit of a pain to take off and come in. You have to be squawking a certain squawk, and you have to stay under the Stansted shelf. So it's a bit of a pain. It's not as easy as Earl's Cone in that sense. How does the 172 compare to the A2A 172? I don't know, Carl. I've not flown the A2A much. How do you all fit in the plane? You're just very small people. You're out of EGKA. EGKA. Which airfield is that? Where is that, Stu? It's actually closer for me, Beaker. If you look where North Weald is, it's west out of Chelmsford. About 30 minutes, if that. Right. Hang on. I got a phone call. 1 second. Hello? Yeah, I'm literally live right now, so my stream says hi. Alright, see you later. Bye. You live 2 miles from EGBK. Okay. Shoreham, right. Shoreham, fair enough. Yeah, you're on the south coast. Yeah, I want to fly to Shoreham soon. No, that wasn't Mrs. Squirrel.
Runway 30.
That was a friend. Right, mixture's rich. Let's get some lights on here. We'll have taxi light, landing lights. Strobes are on, blah, blah, blah. Whoop. Not paying attention. Right, let's go. It's a lot easier in real life to do things like that whilst looking out the window. Oh boy. Need a rather right rudder for some reason. It's 55. And we're up. Right, we're looking for like 80 knot climb rate roughly. Well, not climb rate, speed. There's 80. We've definitely got a wind coming in. Yeah, the rudders are really weird, Luke. I needed like tons of right rudder just going down the runway, which doesn't make any sense. DJ Kenty, thank you for 2 years, sir. Happy Friday to you. Right, we'll start left turning. No, we're not landing, we're just taking off. Right, so we're going to left turn around to 084, I think we said. I think it might have been mapping. It feels like over-exaggerated engine torque. It was way too much, though. Way too much. I've always wondered how turbulence is a small prop compared to an airliner. The smaller plane, like the more it gets thrown around like a paper bag. Okay. Approximately 084. Do you know what? I should have turned that off for you guys. You should have said something. I shouldn't have left that on. I'm going to keep leaving overlays on. Do you still want the second camera on, by the way? Babazip. Currently I'm doing GA stuff. But in the past I've done the jets. Oh, I can get rid of that. Right. $2,500. Yeah, there's some clouds around. Actually, what I did was I took the live weather and then I moved the clouds up a little bit, like God just picked the clouds up and lifted them so that we could actually see something. Because if you're flying VFR, you want to have nice scenery. You don't want to be sat in cloud. Looks nice. And there's 3,000. But the problem with this, the RPM gauge is like hidden by this handle, which is really annoying. Do I prefer X-Plane or P3D? I have X-Plane installed. I uninstalled P3D because I didn't have enough disk space, so that was my choice because I wanted to do a lot of stuff like this. As a platform, I prefer X-Plane. I find that it's more... I find that it's just easier to use, more modular. I can regenerate my own scenery. But, you know, some of the best planes are still on P3D, which I kind of wish they'd moved to X-Plane with, but that's that. Okay. Well, we're on track. Are you using the default FSX config for the 172? Me? I'm not using FSX. I don't know, Bob. I think whether X-Plane or P3D crashes, it's like if you ran both X-Plane and P3D without any mods, like just pure vanilla, I'm sure they're both very stable. Complications arise when you start to add your own scenery, add-ons, planes, like the underlying operating system, your drivers, like that's when layers of complexity build up, and that's when things generally crash. Stu, for me, X-Plane runs pretty well. Of course, now I've said that, it'll probably crash. But for me, it's pretty stable. What highway is that straight ahead? I'm not sure, to be honest, Lindsay. Frame to frame, good night, sir. Are you a Cadbury man? To be honest with you, like, I used to be really into Cadbury chocolate a lot, but I don't really eat much chocolate anymore, so... But when I do have chocolate, generally it's Cadbury's. I find Galaxy too sweet. Although I do like a Mars bar. So, take from that what you will. Good afternoon, network. Right, just to show you where we are. We'll bring that up there, and you can see that we're on track towards Plymouth at the moment. So we're basically trimmed out, so I can just like let my hands off the controls, and you can see it's maintaining vertical stability. It will have a tendency to drift. You can correct it with just your rudder pedals if you want, a little bit of yaw. But once you've got it trimmed out, apart from turbulence, it more or less flies itself when the air's stable. Dutch Foxy, thank you for 7 months. Your favourite chocolate is probably the Crunchy and the Turkish Delight. When you say the proper ones, I've been to Turkey and had Turkish Delight there. That was proper Turkish Delight. Not the candy bar Turkish Delight. I know I got 4% battery. It's charging currently. The iPad was in my flight bag, and basically it's gone flat through the week. So I took it out. It was completely dead. Stuck it on the mains lead, and it's slowly charging up. I think the markers are distance markers. I could be wrong, but if we bring up the... Let's bring it back and have a look. We put a ruler up between us and... that one there. 10, it could be 5 and 10 nautical, I guess, is what that first and second marker are, I think. Probably 5 and 10 nautical miles. What happens if you fly inside the grey clouds? Have you ever been in fog, like thick fog? It's like that. Well, it's on 5% now, so it is charging. Booch! I haven't had a Mars in 50 years. Wow. Go and get one. Let's celebrate together, Booch. Thank you for 30 months, sir. Steve OS, welcome back. Yeah, this is, so it's Orbex England scenery, which is, I mean, you can generate it all yourself, but it won't look as seamless as the Orbex stuff does, because you'll have to color correct a lot of the scenery sectors from the satellite. You have to color correct them to make them all blend together. Otherwise, what happens is, if you generate your own scenery, often you'll find, like, each tile, you'll see the seam between the tile, whereas they've gone along and, like, photoshopped it all. Also, they add a lot of models and stuff to the scenery, a lot of custom models. No, it's not 2D. It's like, depends on your Giddy. It depends on your render settings. You can specify how many objects X-Plane should limit when it auto-gens the scenery. Key in, it's X-Plane 11, sir. I did put it in the title. 23 months, Steve, thank you. Right, so we should start to see Plymouth up ahead. It's quite a big place. Last time we flew over there, it's pretty detailed. Plymouth is Plymouth is synonymous with shipping. It's like massive port. Not many Twitch Sam in the PA-28 because they when I trained onto the PA-28 they then sold it. So I didn't get to fly it very much. But the group I'm joining has a PA-28, but you have to have 100 hours in your logbook before you can fly it. And I'm only on 80, I think. So I've got some way to go before I can fly that. Maybe by the end of summer, if all goes well. Black Holly, good morning, sir. There you go, that's where we are. Yes, usual Drew. That's what I was talking about. Do you like high or low wing better? Personally, I prefer... Well, they have their ups and downs. Like, a high wing plane gives you really nice visibility when you're looking at the ground. So from a scenery perspective, Like looking down like that, it's whoa, frames please. I think it's loading Plymouth in. Plymouth is pretty detailed. From looking down at its scenery, high wings are great. Also, they tend to, like particularly the 172, it tends to glide and float extremely well. Your landing speed, and landing distance can be very, very short. With a low wing, conversely, you can't see the ground as well because there's a big wing in the way. But they do tend to sort of glide and fly, just they feel better, they feel more stable. With a high wing, because the fuel is all above you, they have quite a relatively high center of gravity, and the wind, particularly like a crosswind, can really pick the wing up and throw you around a lot more. So in a crosswind, they're a bit of a tricky land, the 172, in a crosswind. And the other thing is, the real downside to a high wing plane is when you make a turn like this, you can't see anything. You can't see while you're turning. You have to literally do that, look that way, and then make the turn and get it over as quickly as possible. Because while you're banked in, you cannot see where you're going. Which is, when I first experienced it, I was like, I don't like that very much. So with a low wing, you don't get that problem. When you turn in, you can still see exactly where you're going. So, yeah, they have pros and cons. On the whole, I think I prefer a low wing. Right, Plymouth up ahead. You want the yoke cam? Well, we did have it turned on for a while. It's not terribly exciting. No giddy. There's no parking sensors. There's no reversing a plane. You have to physically push it. There's no air conditioning. Like you can, in a plane, you've got heating controls, but you don't have cooling controls. So you on a cold day, you can warm the cockpit up. On a hot day, you can't cool it down. About 14,000, I think, is the, maybe 12 actually paying, but you've got to be careful, like, because it's not a pressurized cabin. So once you get above 9,000, you need to start watching out for hypoxia and stuff. Just roll the window. I'll have a look outside in a sec. It's quite big, Plymouth. Well, Neelansh, thankfully, the higher you fly, the colder it gets. So when you go up a few thousand feet, it's a lot cooler, especially with the air moving. The problem is when you're sat on the ground or you're taxiing, it can get really hot inside the cab. Really hot, you know. Right, let's have a look where we're heading next. So if we go to our plug, heading magnetic is 4048. I don't know if you can see it, but it's that blue column roughly in the middle. Our next heading is going to be 048 approximately. Bearing in mind that this is the Sky Demon is doing it based on live weather, and I'm not using live weather. So it'll be about there-ish. Alright, let's make our turn.
Welcome back,
Lord Groot, I've experienced that before. Mostly that's happened to me on, I have to say, P3D, where I've crashed on final. particularly as it loads the airport scenery, and then it's just crashed. If you've got it on autosave, you might be able to recover it, but it's a real pain. Okay, so fuel's good, T's and P's are good. Check the DI alignment. It's good. What happened on Wednesday, Giddy? What do you mean? What do you mean, what happened on Wednesday? You don't need to cough, but you could just remind me, mate. Nightmare, thank you for almost 2 years. And the same for Steve OS, almost 2 years. Okay, so according to this, so we're flying up to. It's warning me about the antenna. We're flying directly to Exeter Airport now. Is where we're heading. It's like the wind needs to adjust like that. So it's also safe. Stopped me losing 5 hours yesterday. Yep. I think we're going to climb to 3.5. Yeah, exactly. It was recommended in MSA 3,400, so 3.5 is where we'll go. Indeed, boatmans. Mr. Cat Straiter, how you doing, sir? We're almost there. Not. Happy Friday to you, Cat Straiter. That feels a bit safer. The grass seems very dry. It's just the scenery. A lot of it is time of year dependent, to be honest with you. I mean, it is obviously satellite imagery, but it depends when they took it, right? They might have taken it after we've had hardly any rain during the summer. I don't know. As it says in the title, Bokan, it's Orbex scenery. Orbex True Earth. Where are we flying? I shall show you where we're flying. That's where we currently are. We are heading northeast towards Exeter, EGTE. So we're currently over Dartmoor. The highest point of Dartmoor is just off the left wing there somewhere. Like I say, I think Dartmoor was where Sherlock Holmes' Hound of the Baskervilles was all set, because it can get really foggy there in winter. BBC Sherlock is brilliant. Mrs. Squirrel loves all that stuff. She watches so much kind of crime detective type thing, like everything. It's unbelievable. Oh yeah, I used to like Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Pringle. I thought he was a really good Sherlock Holmes. I still enjoy watching those old black and white Basil Rathbone Sherlocks. I would call it junk food for the brain, personally, Kat, most of it, but she enjoys it. You like Air Crash Investigation? Yeah, they're really interesting. A lot of them are. I cringe at a lot of what they have the pilots saying, though. What the heck was that? Right, so we are about 15 nautical away from Exeter. We should see, when we get nearer, we should see an estuary coming in on the right. English Channel's over here, so the estuary comes in, and that's where Exeter is, and then the airfield's just on the other side of it. We're going to go and fly up to Bristol, but we're taking the scenic route. It landed for the first time as well. That wasn't good. Landing's the hard part, Dog Braith. Everybody can take off. If you like country living, this is where you want to be. If you like little villages and surrounded by rolling countryside, this is where you want to be. Born, welcome back, sir. It's actually a little bit brighter. You can see we've actually got some shadow coming down now off this lid. Why is landing harder? Because if you just rely on gravity, then that's not a controlled descent. And that's a crash, not a landing. Rain's too much up there, Raven, for my liking. If you like rain, then yeah, go and live in the Lake District. I'm not sure what it's on, Chris. I think it might be on high. I need to check. Well, what's the definition of a crash, Uncapped Badger? I don't think there's any such thing as a controlled crash, really. I think maybe a crash is actually something where you lost control. You love the Cotswolds, but it's a bit harsh on the wallet for your liking. The definition of being harsh on your wallet is what happens when you go to Orlando, Florida, and you go to, like, Universal Studios. Then that will define harsh on your wallet for you. Cotswolds, nothing compared to that. Right, we're 10 nautical away from Exeter Airport. See, that estuary is not as visible today. It's actually quite misty, but you can kind of see it there. This is Exeter coming up. Is it possible to simulate emergency landing in a highway? Yeah, you can do. You can go and land on one of those. You can, to be honest though, it depends on where you are in the world, but in this part of the world, you're better off landing in a field. Highways are like, they have problems, vehicles being one of them. But then you've got lampposts, street lighting, bridges, like there's all kinds of problems with landing in a highway. If you can pick a nice open field like those down there, chances are it's a safer bet. Right, so if we have a quick look on the map where we are. So we're just coming up to Exeter. Our next heading roughly will be 027. See, there's a big motorway there. But I'd still go for a field. The problem with landing on a highway as well is you're technically putting other people in danger. You know, so if you land on the highway and hit a car or cause a car to swerve and crash, and you know, you could be sued for that. Land on a field, you don't get that problem. It's pretty good. A parachute. You're not really high enough to deploy a parachute, Jason. But, again, you know, if you was to jump out of this plane and parachute to safety, assuming you could pull that off, what's going to happen to your plane? Yeah, you can land in a field. Of course you can. There it is. That's Exeter. Let's go slightly to the left of it, or to the right of it, then we can take a look on our left side. Well, yeah, cirrus caps, like the whole plane parachutes down. I wonder what the landing fees are at Exeter. One main and 2 disused again. Alright, let's turn on track. Alright, Boatmans. Is it going to take you 2 days to get some snacks? Mr. Zarek, thank you for 49 months. Venture is a week away. Nice. Right. I think I might come down a little bit now. Actually, no, let's get past Dunkswell and then we'll do it. Good Firefly and Mach 1 in the F-18. Depends what you're trying to do though, doesn't it, Badger? Like, it's hard to look at scenery when you're doing Mach 1. Live a few hours from Oshkosh. Nice, dude. To be honest, Brewheart, I think you've got to be pretty brave to fly into Oshkosh. I've seen the videos. It's proper scary. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said it depends what you're doing. If you're going for aerial combat, then absolutely you don't care about the scenery. But I'm not going for aerial combat. You fly around in a heli when you get new scenery. Fair enough. Welcome back, March 644. The thing is about GA flying though, everything happens a lot more slowly, so like if you're trying to practice something or get something properly nailed, a GA plane is a good place to do it. Like just getting the basics nailed, like flying a heading, flying an altitude, all that kind of thing. Actually needs to be slightly more that way. You get to the Cotswolds if you fly up to 7. Well, at the moment we are there, so we're just off our right wing. Should be Dunkswell. Is there. That's Dunkswell. That's what we are currently. Best thing to do when starting flight sim is to start GA and learn how to fly. Oh, it's absolutely the best thing to do. But it's absolutely not what people tend to do. Heartwarming, is it? Like, a lot of people will get into flying because they'll watch a video of somebody flying like a 747 or 737. They've been on holiday and they really fancy having a go at being a pilot. So that's where they start. They start off with a jet airliner, watch a video, follow through, flicking on all the switches. Like that's like how they get going with it, and then just magenta line the whole thing. And the problem with that is you don't know how to learn to fly a plane. But that's what a lot of people will do, I think. Yeah, but I mean, I don't see why. Honestly, I'm not judging people. Like, that's fine. I get it. I get why people would do it. But at least you took the next step. At least you sort of thought, well, hang on a minute. I'll go back and do GA stuff and learn how to actually learn how a plane flies and learn how to fly a plane. Like, that's great. As long as you go back and do that bit, that's the important thing. Back in the days of FS 2004, I started on a 747 and then learned the basic stuff on a 172. Well, I mean, I've flown this plane, the 172, and had people come into the stream going, when you gonna fly a real plane? Like, literally, you know, why are you flying this toy? I've had those kinds of comments. And of course, if you fired up a flight sim and it had a 747 and a Cessna 172, what are you going to pick? Well, the thing is, Seaway, what you always have to remember is that, like, every pilot in the front of those airliners, every pilot started in a plane like this. They didn't start in that cockpit. The more you get into simming and flying, the more you appreciate GA. I think that's actually very true. And also, the more that you want better scenery, because when you're flying GA, that's the main thing. It's like looking out the window and going, ooh. So that's what Exeter looks like. Good morning, Gorty. I've seen the real story about a guy flying in a Cessna and the pilot dies mid-flight and he's got to land it. Is that the one where he has, like, his friend has a heart attack? I have seen that one. Yeah, and the other guy had done some basic stuff but managed to get the plane down. Yeah. Yeah, his friend who was flying passed away. I'm sure he had a heart failure in mid-air, which is like a nightmare scenario for most people. Well, to be honest with you, like, something like the Dash 8 Q400, I find that plane probably more satisfying to fly than like a 737, because, I mean, apart from the engine audio and the turboprops, which is just fantastic, it's actually just a very, it's like a hands-on plane. It's just nice. It's just really enjoyable. It won't just fly itself, like, you've got to manage it. Mark644, thank you for 43 months. Right. Well, that's it. Ninja with the airliners. Yeah, you see the airfield, the airport taking off and landing. Well, most of the time, you're very high up. Ever think of doing gliders? It's funny, like, it's funny you should ask. Like, I emailed a gliding school yesterday, and asked them about coming, basically, because I'm making these VR 180 videos, and one of the things I'd like to do is do gliding with the VR 180 camera. So I emailed a gliding school to ask them if they'd be kind of interested in that. So watch this space. I'm not sure I fancy gliding myself, like in a solo glide, but I think I'd be quite happy to jump in a two-seater with a gliding instructor and just experience it, because I think it'd be super cool. Right, let's have a look. That's Bristol.
Happy anniversary, Nata.
Come on, 2-7. We're not going to make the first. We might make that one. What's the GA ramp? I'm not exactly sure where the GA ramp is at Bristol. Yeah, it would, Cat. It would be incredible. I think with the VR 180 camera, it'd be pretty perfect. No, I've not spoken to any trucks. I've lined up some Steam stuff, Steam trains. I'm going to email some Steam train guys, some companies, and try and get a Steam train. I'd like to do a Steam train. I think I'm going to line up a race car, so hopefully a Porsche. I'd like to do a gliding, and then some more aviation stuff maybe. I don't know. We'll see. A lot of it depends on who wants to sort of, you know, work with me kind of thing. It may be dictated by that. There's things I'd like to do, but then it's kind of driven by what's available. I think a steam train would be really cool. It would be very difficult to film just because of all the steam and the smoke and everything, but it could be kind of cool. Right. Let's descend down to 3,000. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get dirty. Absolutely. Yeah, Balkan, there's quite a few heritage lines in the UK though that are run by like volunteers, and they rely on people going on experience days to sort of fund the line, as it were. Day on a farm, I don't think it would work. For VR 180 as well, especially, it wouldn't work. It's not really simulation. It's not really like... It's not the idea I pitched to YouTube when I said anyway. I never said, oh, I'll spend a day on a farm. We're more about simulation stuff. I don't know, filming on a tractor would be tricky. Jaffa Cake, 3-year hype, dude. A new nut. Thank you so much for 3 years, Jaffa Cake. Getting quite misty. Ooh, scenery load hype. It looks like they've got an ILS on 09. You can see me now in the flat cap, wellies, blade of hay sticking out my mouth. It's okay.